Now that Pretty Little Liars Summer School has wrapped up, it's time to talk about that Bloody Rose reveal and all of the clues throughout the season. If you haven't finished the final episode, turn back now because there will be spoilers. So this season follows the Liars as they spend their mornings prepping to retake exams required to pass sophomore year, and their evenings being tormented by a new masked killer, Bloody Rose. Born from the horror website Spooky Spaghetti, the Bloody Rose character is depicted as having their face wrapped in bloody bandages, the lore of it claiming that Archie skinned his mother's face to make his own mask. This comes from Mouse anonymously sharing the detail that Archie's mask was leather-like and stitched together. Unknown to the Liars at the time, Bloody Rose kills two teens, Nick and Sabrina, who found her shack in the woods, and then she kills Sandy as she waits alone for Greg. By episode 3, the girls learn of Bloody Rose after she tricks Mouse into a deadly game of hide-or-seek before setting the building on fire with Mouse still inside. When she escapes and reunites with the other Liars, they figure out that a new villain is after them and putting them through final girl tests, but they don't know why. The tests continue, with Farron being weakened before having to fight off Bloody Rose, and then Noah being forced to run over a path of thorny stems, and then Imogen coming face to face with her mother as she fights off Bloody Rose, who is wearing a Davy mask. This all leads to Tabby's final girl test, where it's revealed that Bloody Rose is a delusional Mrs. Langsbury seeking revenge on Tabby for outing her son as a rapist. She's working with Wes, who has spent the last 6 months making what he calls the ultimate horror movie, where you kill somebody for real and you film it. It turns out the murders of Nick, Sabrina, and Sandy were filmed to be used as teasers for his final movie titled The Reckoning. While the focus is on Tabby as the final girl, Wes admits that the rest of the Liars were tested because a horror movie needs to have victims and potential victims. You can't just jump to the final chase. With Tabby's final girl test being live streamed on Spooky Spaghetti, we find out that Wes created the website. He used it to expand the Bloody Rose lore and recruit proxies to work for him, some of which came from Pastor Malachi's church cult, so we can assume that they had a role in tailoring Redemption House to exploit the Liars' traumas. Wes's plan to create the ultimate horror movie doesn't come out of nowhere. While there is a flashback in the finale showing Wes pitching the idea to Chip, the serial rapist, his desire to be seen as a great filmmaker ties back to the first season. Back in Season 1, it's De Palma week at the theater. The sign outside features red A's, which might be the earliest clue pointing to Wes, who is inside talking about De Palma being an auteur. An auteur is a filmmaker whose personal influence and artistic control over a movie are so great that the filmmaker is regarded as the author of the movie. This is absolutely what Wes is going for, being the author of his ultimate horror movie. Creating the Spooky Spaghetti website and orchestrating the Bloody Rose killings and the final girl tests would give him full artistic control over his movie. At the start of Season 2, after Tabby gets rejected from the film festival, Wes mentions that his shorts have been rejected 3 years in a row, but he says that they'll wish they discovered him when he makes his ultimate horror movie. He's enthusiastic about Tabby's movie until they're interrupted by Mrs. Langsbury in one of her 2 scenes before the finale. She demands that Tabby take the movie down as it exposes her son for who he really is and who she denies him to be, and it's an interesting scene of the 2 villains and the final girl before we know anything that's gonna happen. But the plan is already in motion as Wes started the Spooky Spaghetti website about 6 months earlier. After Chip was murdered by Archie, Wes took his things from his locker over to his mother and he saw how devastated she was. She blamed Imogen and Tabby for his death as if they forced A to kill him, and Wes exploited her grief and her anger to recruit her as Bloody Rose. Wes pitched his idea to Chip once for the ultimate horror movie, and he frames it like, oh yeah, Chip and I were talking about making a movie once. But even Chip in the flashback is like, you're joking, right? A major contrast to his excitement when he's brainstorming with Tabby. This is because Tabby has good ideas and a unique perspective, while Wes is just a bitter loser who can't handle her being a better filmmaker. When he finds out about her second chance to submit another short for the film festival, he acts excited for her, but he's unhappy about it, which Christian notices. Tabby brushes it off as Wes just being stressed, but Christian remarks, that guy's darkness, which ties into the finale when Kelly's mom describes Mrs. Langsbury as having an awful darkness inside of her, a darkness cultivated by Wes in his quest to make this movie. Wes does try to fracture Tabby's confidence, suggesting that they only gave her another chance because they were called out for lacking diversity, but Tabby doesn't tolerate his racist bullshit, and Wes tries to insist that it's harder for a white guy right now, a remark that he echoes in the finale when he says that it's hard for young white guys to break into the industry because the doors don't just fly open like they used to because they're too busy opening up for people like Tabby. After his attempt to discourage Tabby, Wes disappears for a few days, and when the air conditioning isn't working, Tabby imagines seeing Wes dead in the vent, which would have been an excellent foreshadowing of his death. While he's AWOL, Tabby and Christian check out his apartment and find a bunch of creepy masks, not as good as the ones that Christian makes, and his laptop open as spooky spaghetti. Christian asks Tabby if she ever found out who posted her number online, and instead of seeing all the red flags, Tabby says screw whatever's going on here, she's tired of dealing with other people's psycho bullshit. Later that day, when the girls show up to Hell House, Tabby and Imogen are confronted by Mrs. Langsbury, her second scene so far, and she accuses the girls of lying about her son and getting him killed, but they rightly correct her that Archie's the one that killed him and they didn't lie about anything. Having gone through Hell House, Mrs. Langsbury would know the rooms to be able to prep for Imogen's final girl test, and considering Russ recruited proxies from the church cult, they would have had easy access. During Imogen's test, Bloody Rose is wearing a Davy mask. Tabby asks Christian about realistic masks, and he explains that they're so easy to make, anybody with a 3D printer could do it. So while Wes isn't good at making masks, a Davy mask would be easy enough. Wes does show back up to the theater to tell Tabby and Christian that he's moving to LA, and they check out his apartment again sometime later to confirm that he's actually gone, but it turns out to be a fake out to avoid suspicion and to give him more time to focus on crafting Tabby's final girl scene in the church. The reveal that Wes and Mrs. Langsbury are working together seems to pull from Scream 2, which you can spot a poster for in Christian's bedroom when Tabby spends the night. Mrs. Langsbury, mother of serial rapist Chip from the first season, is motivated by revenge as she blames Imogen and Tabby for the death of her son, similar to Mrs. Loomis, who seeks revenge on Sydney for killing her serial killer son in the first movie. Working with Mrs. Loomis is Mickey, a film student who takes on the role of Ghostface with the intention of getting caught and becoming famous for his killings. Wes, like Mickey, doesn't intend on getting away with the murders. He wants people to know what he did, how he planned and executed the ultimate horror movie. But unlike Scream 2, neither of the killers die. Mrs. Langsbury tries to attack Imogen, but Farron knocks her down with a kick to the face and she's later arrested, and Wes survives Tabby stabbing him into a wall with a pitchfork. In an interview with the showrunners, they said that they didn't kill Wes for a simple reason: they're cowards. No, they said they hate killing villains because they want as many of them out there as possible, which is just a really bad reason when it would better serve the story for somebody to die. And it would have served the story for Wes to die, specifically for Tabby to kill him. Not only would it have been an escalation, like Imogen had to fight off Archie last season, but Tabby would have to kill the villain this season, but Tabby herself says they need to do whatever it takes to survive, and that should have meant killing somebody. It would open up so much story-wise. Tabby confides in Imogen that she wishes she had carved that A into Chip's chest on trial night, and she asks if that makes her an awful person. So I would be interested to see how she dealt with killing Wes. She was in this life or death scenario, kill or be killed, and she had to kill. So how does that affect her when the adrenaline wears off and she has to live her life having ended somebody else's? She had a complicated relationship with Wes where he was her boss, but then sometimes her friend, and then he was predatory towards her, but then he was also supportive of her filmmaking until he wasn't. Imagining Wes in the vent while he's AWOL could have been a wish, like Tabby hoping that Wes was simply out of the picture and no longer a problem in her life after she had put up with him for so long. But come to find out, when she does kill him and take him out of the picture, her Wes problem doesn't go away. He lingers and haunts her just like the memory of Chip. It could also put a potential target on her having taken a life. It could be used as some future motive or justification for revenge. But unfortunately, Wes survived and he was arrested along with Mrs. Langsbury, who I would be happy to never see again. But it does leave open the possibility of Wes to return, just like we saw Archie return after he escaped Ravenswood Penitentiary to come kill Dr. Sullivan for reasons I still don't understand. But whatever, I'll watch a season 3 no matter what. So what did you think of the reveal? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you notice any other clues? Let me know down in the comments. Movie titled Reckoning. They said it so many times now I can't say it. Reckoning. The Reckoning. What does that even fucking mean? I don't care.